Hey, Hockey World. We have stuff. We have trade. We have not trades. We have signings. We're going to have trades. We're gonna. This is just going to be a crazy couple of days here. Lots of stuff happening. We're going to just get in. Kevin Allen's going to be joining us shortly. We are going to get into the. We're going to get into the show in a second. I have one thing I wanted to talk about real quick, and then the rest. And my thing is the most atrocious, because this is our we're doing a show tomorrow, I guess, too. But since this is one of our last shows towards Christmas, the one of the most atrocious things I've ever witnessed. Well, here's Kevin Allen. We'll bring Kevin in. Hey, Kevin. So,
Kevin.
One of the most atrocious things I've yet to witness in my lifetime, I got to see last night, which is the Mariah Carey Christmas special.
Oh, I thought you were going to say it was a Joe Biden press conference. Okay.
Oh my gosh! Yes, there you have it. Incredible beyond words.
Incredible in a negative way, I'm assuming.
Oh my gosh! Literally. Okay, first of all, Mariah Carey will only film herself from one side.
I had no idea. No, I didn't know that.
Yes, it's like everything she does, is like this angle. You'll never see her from this angle. It's only this angle.
What's the reasoning for that?
She obviously likes the things she likes.
She's less ugly on one side.
Right? But so that's the one thing. The other thing that's really even crazier about it is it literally is the story of how Mariah Carey was summoned by Santa to save Christmas through music.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
It is beyond. I can't imagine the people around her saying, "This is great. This looks amazing." She must be surrounded by
yes people.
Crazy yes
she
people.
did it for her kid. That's why.
Well, first of all, she has 2 kids in life.
Okay, so 2. So she did it for her kids.
3 kids in the special. I'm trying to figure that out. And she even mentions a couple times for my 2 children. And we're like, well, we just saw you with 3 children, but there's so much wrong with it.
Maybe one's on a trial basis.
There was a buy one get one free at Walmart.
It almost has to be watched to really fully appreciate it.
It can't be as bad as the Christmas special for Star Wars. It just can't be.
Well, that of course is epically hokey forever,
right.
But that's bizarre.
Yeah, we talked about it, but I'm just saying
porn. But this is completely. This is really, 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 really something.
I'll check it out.
There is a scoop on my television right now. We have Christmas music on, and they have those little fun facts. And until 1931, it says up there, Santa Claus was portrayed as elf size. Only after 1931 did he have human size. So there you go. I never knew that.
And he was fat.
So
we don't know if he
doesn't mention his girth.
Right? So. Yeah, good. He was described always as a jolly old elf. Remember. And that was the thing. So he was, although depends on how you look at it. What Santa
looking at it like he's not
Santa University subscribed to.
You mean looking at it like it's not something fake and fictitious and brought up and drawn up by a writer somewhere?
Well, actually, if we looked at Santa from a particular angle, maybe he isn't fat.
That's true.
All right, I have one pre-show item. It's going to be baseball. It's a rarity, actually. This is a rarity. This doesn't happen very often, and it definitely seems to be real now. And it seems like the Mets and Yankees are both bidding for DJ LeMahieu. And this is something where usually the Mets and Yankees are not after the same players. I would say most of the times it's because the Yankees have always outbid them. But now the Mets have plenty of money. And at first it seemed like this story was really not there. But the Mets did just recently contact LeMahieu, and that's being reported. And so now it's there. And this will be very interesting because, Mike, I don't know how much do the Yankees have to spend before they hit the luxury tax approximately?
Something like $35 to $37 million. It's like, they probably have after they sign them, if they sign LeMahieu for 25 or 20 to 25 million, they have like around 10 to 12 million in room.
So if the Mets wanted to screw him, they could sign him for like 30, 32 million or something, and the Yankees might not do it. And it might not be worth it, but if they wanted to grab the headlines,
if he goes for a longer term or for a higher amount, they are not going to go over the $210 million luxury tax, because I guess over that, the percentage, it's basically you're spending for every dollar that you're spending, you're adding another 50 cents. So it's like that kind of tax. It's really, and they want to reset it for next year so they don't pay the luxury tax. So they're not going to do it. If he wants to go to the Mets and they give him a 5-year deal, I mean, God bless. But they'll spend their money elsewhere.
So this is where I bring Kevin into it. Kevin, did you ever imagine where you would hear this kind of scenario, and if George Steinbrenner were around, he would be trying to outbid the Mets, wouldn't he?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
No matter what the luxury tax was.
Yeah, I mean, just for the marketing value of doing that, So that's my, one of my favorite USA Today stories. First day at USA Today, 10 minutes into my tenure there, sitting at someone else's desk, pick up the phone, and it was George Steinbrenner trying to reach somebody on a Sunday from USA Today. And he just said to me, well, I said she was off covering a USFL game, which tells you that it was in the 80s. And he said, well, just tell her George Steinbrenner returned her call. And I was on loan at the time, and I told the guy sitting next to me, man, I got to work full time at a place where George Steinbrenner returns your call on a Sunday afternoon. So.
That's pretty good. All right. I can't top that.
No. That's excellent. All right, let's get going here.
We have a rule change too, Ek.
Yeah, let's unpack. Yeah.
Thank you, God.
Today we sing the story of December 23rd. That's another great song. Great song. If you want to search something on Google, the song called December 23rd, the day before the day that is the best day in the land. It's an amazing song by some really cool people. Check it out.
That's gonna be a hard pass for me.
Yeah, I'm gonna have a stroke right
today.
now.
That is today. It's today. All right, here we go. The Hockey World. It is Wednesday, December 23rd, 2020.
I'm Michael Agello, and the best Christmas song is "I Believe in Father Christmas" by Greg Lake.
I'm Russ Cohen. I don't even know if I have a favorite.
No.
I'm Kevin Allen. I've got a lot of favorites, but no need to mention them.
I'm Mac Linden. I'm a big Fairy Tale of New York by the Pogues fan. And watching the HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes to you every Monday through Friday at this time to fill you in on the comings and goings in the hockey world, and we're in it. Because today, as if a Christmas present miracle from God comes down, we have the
news. We have news.
The news that saved Christmas. Just like Mariah Carey.
No, that's something that ruined Christmas. But
so we have first of all, so yesterday we had the rule change. And we talk about the rule change really quickly, get that out, and then we'll get into some of the player signings. If we have anything else going on, we'll also talk about it as we happen, because I've got everything going. I've got all my control stuff here that I use at the rumor deadline. So we'll see what happens.
All right.
But, so let's talk about the rule change. The offsides. The NHL finally got this right. Essentially,
they finally came into the 21st century. Let's just say that, because that's what this is. To not have, with the NFL, you breaking the plane for a touchdown. I don't know how in God's green earth the NHL didn't do it before yesterday, but thankfully now we don't have to scrutinize a video that's grainy to see if somebody's skate is touching the ice.
Oh, I don't know about that, Mike. Yes, the rule has changed to our liking. I still think they're going to be looking at the iPad on every goal to now look at the player's skates rather than looking for the skate in the air. Yeah, but they're still going to look. They're still going to look at it to see if it's offsides. There's no question in my mind about that.
Yeah, I've already gotten an email today saying that from someone in a league person, actually a team person, who said, those things are always distorted too. You got to,
Well, Kev, they're going to have to rely on those pinhole cameras on the blue line where it's clear.
But those are distorted images. We've all seen when they show those. I've been able to actually look where they've kind of showed me where, what one angle shows where it looks like it's really clear that it touches the line, and they show it from another angle and it's not clear. They aren't always I first of all, let me say that I'm glad they're doing this rule change because Mike's absolutely right. Playing the glass is the way to do it. But I'm just saying that it's not going to be cut and dry as people think it is. Yeah, that's all I'm saying. It's a good rule change, and I'm glad they're doing it.
Is there anything to the fact that these are such finely tuned players that giving them another couple inches here, essentially, I think that we're going to see that taken advantage of, like in every which way they can. Like, and one thing I like this rule change, but I'll say the one thing about the offsides was this for years, and I always thought it shouldn't be reviewable, honestly, because I know we've had some terrible mistakes, but I thought some of the close ones were ridiculous that they were reviewed. Because the one thing about any hockey fan, I think, who's watched enough hockey, is you can sense offsides. You can really, you really can. I mean, we can all sense it. That felt like offsides.
Yeah.
We know what that sense is. Now, does this change that? Does what they do now change our sense of offsides?
What I think it brings back, and okay, we've seen it for years, but with the rule that the skate had to be down. Remember back in the day, you would always see on a 2-on-1 that player stick out his back leg, the trailing leg, so that some part of his body was onside. And when they didn't have video replay, the referee would say, "You're onside," because that leg was. But half the time it wasn't touching the ice. So now, as long as that leg is trailing and it's still, and the other player crosses the zone, and then that leg is in the neutral zone, it's onside. So
I would say this, Ek. The same as the neighborhood play for double plays in baseball went away with the advent of video, so did the thought of what our offsides is as well, because now you still can look at it 3 or 4 times before the puck drops to see if you're going to challenge it anyway, even though they changed the rule. So we will never get our offsides back. That's gone with the pre-video age.
I also agree with you, Ek, that we all have a sense of offside. Like, you're watching them play and they score a goal and you're saying that was offside. That was offside. But we all sometimes go back and we look at that replay and then you have to say, well, he got it right. Boy, I thought it was offside. It fell offside.
I know. I mean, how many times have you seen it? How many times does the puck come in the zone and you're like, oh, man, this isn't going to count if they score because I think that was offsides. And it continues on, and you're like, I really think that was offsides.
Yeah. I mean, it's a bang play, but
it is.
Yeah, I mean, I feel the same way. Like I feel like all rule changes, and which is, we've changed rules many times through the years, and everybody will adjust, and we'll move on.
It'll move on.
So we'll find something else to complain about.
All right, I want to start with the player signings, and I want to start in Nashville first because I think the most significant stuff has actually been Nashville so far. And I know, we can talk about what Tampa did and all that stuff, but Nashville brought in 2 pretty serious players. Well, they definitely spent more money than anybody else.
Well, first of all, they brought back Granlund.
They brought back Granlund, but he was not really expected to come back, Kevin.
Yeah, right.
That's what I want to talk about. I want to know what happened because I was told, no, we're moving on from Granlund. It wasn't good. He didn't really enjoy it all much, and it wasn't. We didn't. We're moving on from Granlund. Now all of a sudden, Granlund's back
at $3.75 million.
Well, I think that's the key because if you look at Nashville's cap right now after signing those 2 players, they had over $12 million in cap space, and we know that everything is not prorated, but everything is essentially with the 20% escrow and the 10% of deferment. That everything is at a discount now, and so you have 2 players signing Granlund and Hall totaling $5.25 or $5.5 million, and they're not going to be paying them $5.5 million, but Nashville sees an opportunity here, and frankly, Kev, I have a feeling that Granlund wasn't being offered anything more from anybody else, so he just took simply the best offer. And I'm a little surprised it is Nashville because he didn't have a good year there.
Well, no, and I, like I said, I was told, that that's not gonna. That Granlund, they're just going to let him move on. It was not. It didn't work out as well as they wanted it to, and they moved on. But then suddenly, I think, that was their option, and that was their best option. And as Ken Holland used to say, about whether he liked a player. Well, I don't like him at $4 million, but I like him a lot at 3.4. I mean, it has everything to do with what the price is. But let's just talk about the Predators set out that one of their objectives was to improve their top 6 forward group and to make it different. Like that was one of the objectives, is to make it different. So not so much just to get more scoring out of it, which they really need to do, but also, they want a little more bite. I'm not sure they did that. I think their top scoring, top 6 is sort of similar to what it was before when they had Craig Smith and Granlund and, Duchesne. Now Granlund is back and Eric Holla replaces Craig Smith. I don't think that gives them more bite. I don't think it gives them pushback. It doesn't increase their size. Will it give them more points? I don't know. I don't think so.
I'm going to tell you that I was in the locker room more than I'm usually in the locker room for Nashville, and Granlund is as quiet as a church mouse. He had like 1 point in the last 5 games of the regular season. He had 1 point in the playoffs. Like, it's just, if you want to talk about a guy who is invisible when you need him, that's what he is. Now, I think because they just needed players and they did have the cap space that they got him, but he's got to do better than 30 points. Yeah, 17 goals looks pretty good, but it didn't help him when he needed him. And that's the thing. Granlund, and Kevin's right, the other losses are still bigger than what they brought back. Craig Smith is a big loss.
Well, what I'm wondering, if this is twofold. One, I think Hall is the replacement for Kyle Turris because he's probably fits best as a third line center. If he's their second line center, then I think they're in trouble because he's not a big offensive guy. And second of all, could this be a reflection of the fact that maybe they were in on Hoffman and Hoffman wasn't going to go there, so they went back and
probably. Yeah, I think that's fair.
That decision was Granlund. I mean.
Well, yeah, I mean, Holla can play the wing and center. And I mean, their only other option right now in their top 6, in my opinion, is Kunin. And they have said that they felt he can move up and down the lines. But I don't know. I don't see him really as a real legitimate second line, forward either. So.
I mean, you would probably have to put him with, put Arvidsson on the second line and make that more of a diverse lineup. If you're putting Duchesne on the top line with Ryan Johansson, and Duchesne can play center, but it's clear from the last couple stops that people prefer him on the wing. That if you put him and Johansson together on the first line, that maybe you would have to have Arvidsson on the second line to sort of, diversify your offense and have 2 offensive lines. If they do that, then maybe they'll get some offense out of that second line. Maybe Cunnin can play on that line. So I don't know, but I was just a little taken aback by him going back to Nashville when we all thought that, he might go to Columbus or someplace like that. The other
Yeah, the bottom line is they're not better up front.
Right.
They're not.
At least I do not think they are. They're a little different, but not much different.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, Brad Richardson, I think their bottom 6 is maybe a little better, but yeah, they're essentially the same team. And they added Mark Borvieski and Matthew Benning on defense. So this is
that changes their last pairing.
Yes.
So that was their objective, and it's better than what they had before. But I wonder this, and I think this is worth discussing.
Yep.
Do you think the fact that they moved divisions? And this division seems a little easier for them to make the playoffs, that influenced them to do what they did.
Sorry, guys.
It's possible.
That was a source from there's about Hoffman. So trying to find a little bit more out about that. They're still. I wondered if the Hoffman thing was tied to the Predators doing these 2 moves. Like, that's what I asked them about, because I don't know if you guys discussed that or not. But
basically what we said, and I'm not 100% sure it's the case, but it could be the fact that maybe Hoffman let Nashville know that he wasn't going there, and the fallback was Granlund.
Yeah, I don't think they were really high on Hoffman, but I think they would have taken him for a 1-year deal at $5.5 million.
Yeah, over Granlund probably.
Yeah,
at one for 3.75. I mean, I think they're getting two players is not a bad deal for the Preds. You know, like I think getting two guys. I mean, they're a team of streaky scorers. You know, we've talked about this before. So you know, the more players you can get that maybe won't be on the bad streak at the same time, the better.
But they're not better. But they're not better up front.
But what exactly, and the thing is,
right?
You know, they added Cunnin in the trade with Minnesota. They added Nick Cousins and Brad Richardson as bottom six guys. But it looks to me like, you know, they have the same goaltending. It looks to me like they're depending on guys like Dante Fabro to grow into a top four defenseman, and a few other things to institute the changes and the improvement. And I don't know if that's enough to really improve where they were last year to where they are now.
I mean, the biggest thing for me is even if the goaltending is good and their defense will be solid, I'm not worried about their defense at all. How are they scoring? Who's scoring for them?
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it's true. I agree.
I agree with the Mike that their bottom six has a little bit different look to it, but their top six forward group, I don't see them getting more goals out of that unless, you know, Ryan Johansson, you know, suddenly, you know, finds his game again, his offensive game again, because they really, it was a struggle for them to get goals at times.
Yeah. No, really the reality is that Johansson and Forsberg, I mean, these are guys that have to do that for them. I mean, without those guys doing that, they aren't. But the fact is, they were not great last year. They made the playoffs. They were okay, but they did that even without those guys having any kind of season, in my opinion. Like they really were. I think if those guys come in half decently, and I am a big fan of Eric Holla. Like I think he does help. I would.
Sure, he's a good player. We're not going to deny that.
I would take Eric Holla over Kyle Torres any day of the week. I really would. I mean, Kyle.
Yeah, Torres, we think Holla's going to have to play on the second line.
Right.
Yeah. No,
that makes it different for Eric Holla.
Yeah.
No, it does for sure. But I think he just is going to give you a more consistent game than
I like that. But let's phrase it this way: Craig Smith, who to me is a 20-goal scorer.
Yeah.
He signed with Boston for less than he was making in Nashville. He was in the twos. I don't remember exactly what it was. Oh, would they be better off? You know, Granlund was not a good fit for them. Neither party liked the experience. Would they have been better off keeping Craig Smith? I don't even know if this was an option. I don't know whether Craig Smith didn't consider re-signing, but would they have been better off, you know, getting him at 3 than Granlund at 3.75? I think with Smith, you can pencil him in for 20. I'm not sure you can pencil Granlund in for 20.
Yeah,
I think you're right.
Smith took an over $1 million pay cut. He was making $4.25 on a 5-year deal, and with Boston, he signed a 3-year deal at 3.1. So, and this is a guy who, like you said, Kev, is somebody who scores in double figures, up to 20 goals a year.
Yeah, I know one of the things that frustrated the Predators about Smith was, you know, he'd get hot and he'd get in that 8 goals in 13 games thing, and then he'd go 15 games without a goal. But, you know, there are a lot of scorers like that.
No, yeah.
That's just part of being a scorer.
But Nashville, to me, Nashville looks like a 5th best team in that division. That's what it looks like.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the greatest division. You know, it's kind of.
There's still good teams. We can't say Dallas all of a sudden stinks because.
No, I'm not going to say Dallas stinks, and there are good teams in the division. But
so Tampa, Dallas,
I think it's
not better than either one of them.
Columbus,
Carolina, Columbus. I think it comes down to like Dallas and Nashville for the 4th spot.
Right. Yeah. Now let me
finish on the Hoffman thought for a second, because what the guy was telling me was he does believe that Hoffman has made a decision, and he doesn't know where that is yet. It's not with his team, and and then, like we say, it's probably not with Nashville, which may have something to do with what we saw here today.
I really would be stunned if it's not St. Louis. Everything adds up for St.
Yeah, that's what I think.
St. Louis and Boston are the 2 teams he was saying, and he says there's Boston. He's still heard Boston involved with Hoffman too. So that's
how does that work in Boston?
I have no idea. Yeah.
I keep hearing that, but it makes no sense to me because everyone has said, unless I'm mistaken on this, hasn't everyone said that Hoffman wants like 5.5 or 6?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you let's just say you give Chara $2 million, that leaves them $900,000.
Right.
So to bring in
that
Hoffman,
says that Chara is not coming back. That if Hoffman is going there, Chara is not coming back.
Well, I don't see how they fit in Hoffman either. I don't.
yeah, I people are saying that, but when I talk to general managers, they all say the same thing to me. Well, how the hell is he going to Boston?
Right.
Unless,
I go, I don't know, but that's what I keep reading.
Didn't you get the impression the other day from Cam Neely's press conference that Chara is not coming back?
Yeah, that's exactly what I said that day. I don't believe he is coming back. I think they're keeping out faint hope in case Chara doesn't get the offers he's hoping to get. But
Matt Cater said there are 20 teams that want him.
Right.
I'm talking exclusively to Boston. So if to me, what that says is if he doesn't go to Boston, it's because Boston didn't want him.
right.
right, and that's why I mean the way Cam Neely spoke is pretty much like, yeah, we have to look beyond this.
Yeah,
So-
and unless somebody like Marchand or Pasternak is going on LTIR for longer than a month or so.
That would be a possibility if they know something we don't.
Right.
But I don't. I think we would know, wouldn't we? Know? So
Yeah, I don't know.
In a couple of weeks, we're going to find out because teams, when they report to camp, like Tampa can't be over the cap.
Right.
And, the Bruins at that point are going to probably have already done something.
Well, we didn't know about Kucherov and his hip problem until 3 or 4 days ago. So, I mean, anything is possible. But let me transition.
But it might not even be a problem now, right? He might have gotten the shot and feels good. Like
he got the shot, but they don't know whether he'll feel good or not. But this is where I want to go here because, I never want to hear offer sheets ever again, because if there is a team that is vulnerable now to an offer sheet more than Tampa Bay, I don't know what team that is, because there's $6.5 million over the cap. They have $3.5 million to go in terms of going over the 10% before the season. They can't now. They could put whoever Stamkos or Kucherov on LTIR proactively if they had to, but they are vulnerable to the offer sheet for Cirelli, and no one is going to offer it. Offer sheets are friggin' dead. It's over.
all right, Mike. Let me just go there. When you start, getting on your high horse on this, I wanted to ask you, what kind of offer do you personally think a team could make to Cirelli that makes sense for them,
right?
Makes sense for them, and then would put Tampa Bay in a bind that they couldn't get out of.
Well, and I'm not looking at the breakdown in terms of money per end of the draft. I mean, you wouldn't make a deal to Cirelli that would cost you multiple first-round picks, even though I think he's a really good player. I think the limit, it's around $6 million, where it's like a 1 and a 2 is the compensation. They can't match that right now. So that would be the deal that I would offer. And now if they all of a sudden make, they have Tyler Johnson for Zetterberg or some deal like that where they can open up the cap space, then that forces their hand to do it.
Right.
And then Cirelli may not want to go anywhere. That's the whole, that might be the whole.
That's the thing. I mean, the reason these don't work is that they're complicated on so many different levels. Like I would say that the Tampa Bay Lightning have already entertained the fact that could happen in someone, and they've got something, I've said this all along. They have something in their back pocket they know they can make. They just don't want to make it right now. They're trying to get something better.
Well, let me ask you.
Or they knew Kucherov was in. That's the other thing. I mean, that could
or Stamkos. I mean, I personally think that.
Well, Stamkos has said publicly that he's fine.
Okay.
So that's not an option. But
okay, so that's off the table.
He has said he'll be ready for the start of training camp.
But let me ask you this, Kev, because all of a sudden, in say the last week, this Tyler Johnson Zetterberg thing between Tampa Bay and Detroit. Why would Steve Yzerman do a move like right?
Right. That's what we keep saying.
No, I don't get it either. I've seen it. That's pretty. Like Eric Tahachuk, and I never saw the actual story. Mm-hmm. I've heard people talk about it, but did Eric Tahachuk just speculate about that?
We had talked about it, Kevin, and I went back and I looked, and it really felt to me like it was speculation.
Yeah, it had to be.
Yeah, okay.
It was like there's here what if this kind of thing. It wasn't.
Right.
Well, for one thing, you know, that would solve all of Tampa Bay's problems if they got rid of both Tyler Johnson and Zetterberg. And why in the world would Steve Eisman take 4 years on Tyler Johnson?
Right. That's what I kept saying.
When he has been so ecstatic over being free of all the contracts that he has. And, he wants the freedom going forward.
Well, he wants to sign his own bad contracts because every GM signs bad contracts.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I'm with you on that. He wants the freedom to make his own mistakes.
Right. And okay, the scenario that would make perfect sense from the Detroit perspective, if there was a team like Vegas or Toronto or Tampa that was up against it and they wanted to add one more player, would be trading for Zetterberg, whose money is $1 million, but the cap hit is a little over $6 million, would be to get a young prospect that's cheap, like Erasmus Sandin from Toronto or Cody Glass from Vegas or Cal Foote from Tampa. That would make sense. You're getting a young, cheap asset.
Sure.
Yes, but trading him for a guy who's making $20 million over the next 4 years and basically having to beg Seattle to take him off your hands in a year makes absolutely no sense.
Yeah,
true. I agree with you completely. Now, we've also seen Kapanen. I just got a text about Kapanen, Vatanen. Sorry, Vatanen. One Finn. So Vatanen, who we have heard Edmonton, being the logical place for that right now, and I do believe that that's a really good possibility because I think you could get more than 1 year out of them, which is what I reported on a couple days ago. But the Flyers have also talked to Sammy Vatanen. Russ, we had talked about the Flyers needing to do some defense.
Right.
A source at the Flyers say that they also feel that they have a shot at Vatanen.
Well, I mean, they might feel like they have a shot, but they're going to, unless Vatanen is going to fit in salary structure-wise to not go over the cap, they're also going to have to make a deal they haven't been able to make either.
Yeah.
No, that's true.
I like Vatanen. I think he's going to help some team, but, you got to be careful in what you give him because he obviously gets hurt. But I think he could help a lot of teams. I was hopeful, although I've seen reports that they're, the Schmidt signing is all they're going to, or the Schmidt acquisition is all they're going to do. Is I like the idea of him going to Vancouver. I think he would really help that team.
Yeah.
But here, Eck, just as an example, so Kapanen, right now the Flyers have $2,261,000 in cap space. He's not taking that. He's not taking 2.5.
Right.
Well, so they would have to do something just to get him in.
Ironically, Kev, you look at the two teams that Eck is bringing up in connection with that, and believe me, I like Vatanen. I think he's a really good defenseman. I don't know whether he fits either team in the sense that he's a more offensive defenseman, and I think both Edmonton and Philadelphia needs to replace Niskanen, and I think Edmonton needs to replace Klefbom, who's a shot blocker and a minutes eater. I think both of those teams fit Travis Hamonic a lot better than they fit Vatanen. Now, it's a question of whether Hamonic is willing to go either place, but I think he's a better fit in both places.
I think, though, Vatanen is an underrated defensive player. He's a
good defensive player.
I talked about that yesterday, and I totally agree. Finnish,
he's a good one-on-one defender.
Yeah, and you got to remember, like the Finnish defensemen are usually pretty good defensively. Like they're not. You're not looking at like they don't bring out like the one-way defenseman.
No.
Yeah,
that's a good point. I look, he wouldn't be as good as Niskanen, but he's probably closer to a replacement for Niskanen than anything Philly has currently or could get. So I would agree with that.
Now, a couple other contracts. Mackenzie Blackwood signing a 3-year deal with the Devils. Russ, you and I both like him. Both think he's a really good young goaltender. I saw him play in the AHL. I think he's, he was forced into being a number one last year a little earlier than they may have wanted to because Corey Schneider is basically done as a goaltender. They bring in Crawford, so now you have a 1A, 1B scenario for a couple years. But I think this is good for Blackwood because after those 2 years, I think definitely he's their starter.
Yeah, I mean, for a while he was relying on his physical abilities, and the Devils have really worked on him with everything else. And the Devils have good goalie coaching, plus they have Brodeur in the building too. So I think this is all good. I think this is a great signing by Fitzgerald. I really think it's good for everybody. And there's not a ton of pressure on Blackwood this year.
Right.
There isn't. Even though he may still be the number one, he's probably not. Crawford will get that shot first, and Crawford, if he stays healthy, will take the pressure off. But at some point, if Crawford's hurt, he'll be back to being the number one. But I don't think the expectations are so great in Jersey that it would be like last year anyhow.
And Kev, the big determining factor for a lot of teams making or missing the playoffs, when we see the schedule released later this afternoon and we see these 2-game series, say, for example, New Jersey playing Buffalo back-to-back, probably Friday, Saturday night, one game is going to be Crawford and one game is going to be Blackwood. There's going to be more emphasis than ever on the backup goaltender at being an important factor with these teams.
Yeah, no, for sure. You've got to managing your goaltending is going to be one of the key factors of this season, just because of the way it's going to shake out. But it's really fascinating. To me, is and I know it seems like it's not significant when you look at it from the and I did the figured it out. It's one game every 2.07. Days, and normally we do 2.28. So it doesn't seem like it's a difference, but when you factor that out over the course of a season, think of it like this: in order to play 10 games, based on that average, it requires you to play. You have 21. You'll play 10 games in an average of 21.7. Is that right?
Yeah.
21.4 because it's 7/10. So 21.4, and if you do that at 2.28, that's an extra 3 days. So when you do that over the course of a season, you're going to end up, every 10 games you're going to lose 3 days that you normally have,
right.
And at least one of those days might be a practice day, but I bet 2 of them are days off for the players.
Yeah, and I can't imagine. I'm really gonna be interested in seeing how they break the schedule down this afternoon. I can't imagine if it's, say, for example, Toronto versus Edmonton, that they're gonna have and it's a 2-game series. That Toronto's gonna go to Edmonton and play game 1 on Friday, and then there will be a day off, and then playing on Sunday. They're gonna play back-to-back days, because they're not going to want to spend an extra day in a hotel and risk the possibility of getting COVID. So it's going to be, you go in, you play game 1, you play game 2, you check out of the hotel, and you're gone.
Yeah, and then you're basically going to go to Calgary. John's going to go to Calgary, and they're going to play 2 or 3 games, and then they're going to go. Well, actually,
they'll probably go to Winnipeg next.
Yeah, and then they'll end up like they're going to knock off. At least 8 road games or 9 or 10 in one full swoop.
Right.
And they're only going to play 28. So, and the travel in the East is going to be unbelievable. There'll be the bus league.
And I think, as I mentioned this yesterday, Kevin, I think that something that might come out long term, I could see some of this sticking around, like not the divisions, but the concept of going and going to a place and playing 2 games.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's the kind of thing that once that happens, and they realize the money they're saving, and the players like it because the players they get to settle into a spot, and everybody likes it. Why wouldn't it stick around?
Well, the one thing that I think the problem is that when we go back to the 82 game schedule and you go back to the other divisions, you're playing teams in your division 4 times, 2 home, 2 road. If you're Toronto, you don't want to play, and I know you're talking about other teams, but I'll use this as an example. If you're Toronto, you don't want to go to the Bell Center and play on a Friday and a Saturday night. The fans at the Bell Center don't want to see Toronto back to back. They want to see them in October, and then they want to see them in March. And when there are paying fans in the stands, I mean, everybody loves the back-to-back, the home and home series between teams in their own division, but it's 2 home games in a row, and then basically Montreal or Toronto is done in Montreal for the entire year. That won't fly.
I'm not sure they did. How do we know they don't want that? I mean, like we go back to the famed survey that the NHL did at the last season, and fans said they wanted divisional rivalries, and then when they did the schedule and took away games, then everybody complained there's not enough variety. If we play this season and it has the intensity that I think it will, I think people will be clamoring for more division games. So,
right. Now, a couple more signings of sort of the tweaking extra player variety, but I think two pretty decent players. Connor Sheary signing a 1-year deal with the Capitals. Kev, Sheary's won a couple Stanley Cups. He wasn't a guy who didn't contribute in Buffalo. It's just Buffalo is not a good team. And then he went back to Pittsburgh at the deadline. Decent depth forward, second, third line. I mean, this is a good ad, especially for a team that doesn't have a lot of cap space for the Capitals. I think it's a good signing.
It was a terrific signing. He's got speed. He's fast.
Right.
And I guarantee you the Capitals will figure out a way to utilize that speed. And he's playing for the right coach. Laviolette wants to push. He wants to push the puck.
Yeah.
He wants to get up ice. He wants to move it. Connor Sheary is perfect for that. And it's a good bargain. He's been around the block. He knows what he's doing.
This really feels like a Laviolette signing. That's the first thing I thought about when I heard it.
Yeah. And there's also other Capitals news, too.
Go ahead.
Brian McClellan basically came out and said that Henrik Lundqvist has had a heart issue for a little while now. And when they found it on the physical, that's when they said they went for further testing, meaning that he had this when he was with the Rangers, whether he knew he had it or just thought it was something that wasn't a big deal. Right. That remains to be seen, but I'm pretty sure we're going to start hearing the Rangers fire back at the Capitals over this.
Well, Russ, the tweet from Stephen Wino at the very last thing it sounded to me like he was saying that Lundqvist is done for his career.
That's what the tweet says. That doesn't mean that that's what will happen, right? But we all are assuming there's a very good chance that could happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's very.
No, it's a question. It's a question that now that this heart condition has been, diagnosed, whether insurance-wise he can even play. You know what I'm saying? I mean, if he signs a waiver or whatever, that's fine. But I'm just saying, they may not be able to sign off on it because of this condition being potentially fatal or something of that nature.
Yeah, it's weird because here's the way the tweet went. It said. That Steve put out, Lundqvist had a heart issue most of his career, and a routine physical showed it was worth getting more tests on. And so, the question comes up in fans' minds, well, then why didn't he get that testing in New York? That's what's coming up on Twitter, and it's a legit question.
For sure.
It's a legit question, but chances are, I really think that, this is something, I've known people who've had this kind of condition. My wife works on the ultrasound devices actually that they're used to diagnose this.
Okay.
Stuff. And, it's the kind of thing that you feel suddenly way worse. Like there's something that happened with Lundqvist beyond just you have the physical, you're also getting tested, but you also felt something. Like you felt something that was weird.
Maybe.
That's something that might admit that I doubt happened in New York, or else this would have come. That's just my.
And think of it this way, Russ. The fact that the Rangers took a PR hit buying out Lundqvist.
Right.
If they would have discovered this as part of a normal, medical examination, they could have put him on LTIR and not taken the PR hit.
Okay, but just to play devil's advocate, this is why, my mother had taught me as a young man, always get a second opinion for anything important in medicine because you want to make sure everything matches up. Did Lundqvist ever go for a second opinion? Did he ever feel like it was important enough? Maybe not, based on what he was being told. He
could have been afraid. That's the other thing that people
could have been.
I mean, that's the other thing when people have conditions like this. Sometimes it might have been finally something happened in Washington that either his wife said you better get that second opinion, or
right,
or he felt something weird and then he's like, yeah, he just had to do it. Now
the other signing was a couple hours ago that the Canadians announced the signing of Michael Frolik, who, he's gotten more stamps on his suitcase than this is his 6th NHL team. He was with the Sabres last year after getting traded from Calgary. And, Russ, maybe he fits what the Canadians are, because he's a two-way guy. He's a depth forward, and Claude Julien, maybe he's not the fastest guy in the world. Maybe he just fits what Claude Julien is looking
I think he does, and he could score some goals, and he does play defense, and I think he even penalty kills.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because I remember when Frolik was drafted, the thought was that there was some high-end skill there, and it just never has come out at the NHL level other than what he's probably had like 15 goals. I remember he had a year that was like he had a 24 something shooting percentage, like a Carlson year, and he ended up with like 15, 18 goals, but that's not his norm. And
at times you can watch him in a game though, like you'll catch a certain game of his and you're like, oh, that guy, man, he should be scoring a lot more goals than he is.
You would think like he does look that way, and that's
he has a look to him that really makes you think something. And there are times when he actually does, finish too, but it feels like sometimes he can't finish a sandwich type thing.
Well, he scored 20 goals his first 2 years in Florida, and then had a stretch of 6 years between Winnipeg and Calgary where he scored in double figures, but he's never exceeded 21 goals.
Right. So he's good for 10, 12 goals usually.
Yeah.
And that's fine. I mean, again,
player too, like that is a good point, with him.
Yeah.
You're not really looking for 20. You're looking for like.
No, but when he was drafted, they were like, that was the thought was he's a 20, 25 goal guy.
Yeah. He was a top 10 pick.
Yeah.
The bottom line on this Montreal signing is they just keep getting better.
Yeah.
Right.
You look at all their moves
Well, they're out of cap space now. They got like $300,000. So this is
I know, but you
I'll take that.
Josh Anderson. You look at Toffoli, Edmondson.
No, they're better.
Yeah, they've gotten better, and Frolik does that as well. I mean, he gives them a third line option that he's a real well-rounded player. So,
I mean, now with this move, I think they're better than Edmonton. The other day I thought Edmonton was slightly better. Now I think they're slightly better than Edmonton.
Okay, Kevin, we need your.
I'm telling you,
we need your sage and expert analysis here. Okay, maybe I'm a little over the top, but I believe that in this Canadian division, there is a distinct possibility that the Edmonton Oilers miss because it's the top four.
Well, I think it's possible, to be sure. But I have them making it. But I've said all along that I felt this is really a flip of the coin, with the exception of the Ottawa Senators. And I liked what Senators are doing. They're not ready yet. But everybody else has a chance to make the playoffs. So if everyone has a chance to make, everyone has a chance to miss. You look at all those teams. Calgary improved in goal. Winnipeg has the Vezina Trophy goalie.
Right.
Edmonton's Connor McDavid and Draisaitl. The Maple Leafs have the gifted offensive team. Montreal's significantly improved. And what's funny about Montreal and Toronto in comparison, I was thinking about this the other day, is if you look at who has the better defense, Toronto or Montreal, I would say Montreal.
Yes.
And who has the better goaltender? I'd say Montreal. And we all believe that defense and goaltending is crucial.
Right.
So why do we think Toronto's better than Montreal? We
well,
do.
I think Kevin makes a good point here because I was thinking in my head yesterday. I thought, the Leafs could win this division. But then, the thought is in my head, if Carey Price has a Vezina year, they could win that division. Yeah. And now they have everything else to back it up.
Let's just say this. But before this year, I think Montreal's defense against Toronto was like this. Now I think it's like maybe that because I think the additions of Brody and Bogosian and maybe Mikko Lehtinen, he's an unknown commodity, the KHL guy that they brought in, that Leafs defense could be better. I think Montreal's goaltending with a 1 and 2 of Allen and Price is among the best in the league. I think Campbell is a number 2 goaltender behind Anderson makes the Leafs at least not a liability with their 1-2 punch. But I think I have to see whether Nick Suzuki and Kotkaniemi and Deno can match up with Tavares, Matthews, and either Kerfoot or Joe Thornton up the middle. That's the big thing.
Yeah, I mean, that's why we think Toronto's better is because their offense is not only skillful, it's glamorous, it's dynamic,
expensive.
Like there's an excitement factor that is missing in Montreal up front that, we like what they're doing with their offense now, but they're not Matthews and Marner and Tavares and Nylander. They're not that. So
right.
it is interesting.
Now, Kev, I wanted to ask this because we sort of glossed over the divisional alignments. We know the 7 Canadian teams. Have you heard from managers and other people in the league that are just not happy that they're in this division or that division? Because if I'm in management with the Buffalo Sabres and I look at the division that I'm in with Boston, the New York teams, Washington, and Pittsburgh, I'm pissed off because I just spent $8 million on Taylor Hall and I have literally no chance of making the playoffs.
Yeah, no, I bet they're not happy about that at all. Because they at least had an outside shot, you would think, in the other division. But yeah, I have heard some grousing about it. But
He just froze for a second. It'll unfreeze.
COVID-19. We're doing the best we can.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's exactly. Yeah. I know. I totally agree, and that's what I've heard too. Like I talked to a couple of people who, were kind of upset about it. Some people that were happy with it too, like Columbus.
Nashville's got to be thrilled. So.
They're got to be pretty happy. They're pretty happy with it. Carolina, same thing. They feel like that.
Sure.
Boston. One of the more fascinating stories to me is where does Boston fit in the Metro? That's like we've having with all these teams. We know Boston's always been so great. Has put up these great regular season numbers. All right, let's see them play in the Metro division. I'm looking forward to that.
But look, if Rask is back to being Rask, they're a contender no matter how you.
They are. They're a great team, but where are they? Where do they slot into the Metro? Are they better than Pittsburgh? Are they better than Washington? Are they better than Philly? Are they better than the Rangers?
They're probably better than Philly and Washington if everything's right.
I think the determining factor is how long Marchand and Pasternak are out, because if they're out for a month to 6 weeks in a compacted schedule in that division, then they probably at best are fighting for 4th place. If they come back after a couple weeks, the way they play the way they play defense, even without their star players, they win games, they compile points. So
that's what I'm saying. I think they're better than Philly and Washington. Well, and the Rangers.
I think they're the favorite to win the division.
Yeah, if that scenario plays out for what Mike just said, they can win the division.
I think they are the favorite to win the division, but should they be like that?
If the other guys aren't out for too long, absolutely.
Until they prove that maybe the Marchand and the Bergeron and Krejci are getting a little long in the tooth. Until we start to see that, then the answer is yes, they should be. They're a pretty proven commodity.
They are pretty proven commodity, but do we care about what happened in the bubble to them? They did fall apart. There's a
Rask issue.
Yeah.
So but Rask Rask is that important to them?
Oh, absolutely. Halak is really good. He's not Rask, but look, for all we know, this is the last season of Tuukka Rask, even in the NHL, and if it is, he might go out with a bang.
And how big of an advantage is it going to be for the New York teams in Philadelphia that they basically are going to be playing half their schedule within a bus trip? The Islanders, when they play the Rangers, they're going back home that night. They're not staying in.
No, but everybody in the division is. They're not playing outside their division, so they don't. There's no advantage.
I talked to somebody the other day who said, depending on where you live as an Islander and where you live as a Flyer, you'd rather be a Flyer than have to deal with the Long Island Express.
Well, I think that's fair. I do agree with that.
The Flyers are 90 minutes away for sure. The Islanders could be 6 hours away.
Right, you don't know. As a Flyer, you could live up in Lehigh, take 80 down, and not have to deal with any of it until you hit the Meadowbrook Parkway.
Yeah, you can be there in an hour. I've been in the Long Island Expressway for well over an hour and a half between New York City and Uniondale.
Heck, I used to work there, and I lived there for 20 years. Half my life was on the Long Island Expressway for a while.
I got pulled over talking on a cell phone to Nashville radio on the Long Island Expressway in heavy traffic. I was not even moving.
Yeah.
I was doing a phone interview on Nashville radio, not even moving. And this cop must have been behind me for 25 minutes. and finally the lights go on. Woo,
The only time there's no traffic on that road is 8:00 on a Sunday morning.
Yeah.
Otherwise, there's always traffic on that highway.
The players could rent a helicopter or one of those hovercraft and go over Long Island Sound or something like that.
No, but that's a good point, though. Whoever said that is smart.
I mean, I think the Devils have I think the Rangers, depending, not easy for the Rangers sometimes. You come in from Connecticut.
No, but the Rangers are going to DC. They might take the train, and same with the Flyers.
A lot of the Rangers guys are living in Connecticut, though, right? So
yeah, a fair amount live.
Devils are probably the ones who live closest to where they actually play.
Actually, not Connecticut, at Westchester, because that's where their workout facility is.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, okay, yeah, something in that area. All right, so yeah, I mean, it is, but let's just, like you said, Kevin. I mean, at the end of the day, these are we're talking about small little things here because.
But don't you think they're going to go on Amtrak? Kev, one of the things I brought up is when I interviewed a lot of older players and would talk, for various books, and I know you have. It seems like if Amtrak does come back into play, the card games that used to break out on those long train rides in the old days will probably be back, because on a flight, I can't imagine you could have a great card game. But now,
yes, you can.
Yeah, they play some incredible card games on the.
Yeah, but now they can have a longer one.
Yeah, but it's there's some.
Amtrak's tough though because I mean that's a COVID concern, isn't it? More. I mean,
I don't know if you rent out, let's say, the two cars in the last two cars in the train, you might be all right.
Maybe. I don't know. It's a tough one.
Kevin got frozen.
I think it's a better trip than a bus.
There you go, Kevin.
You froze for a second, Kevin.
I think.
In the Roenick book, Jeremy Roenick admitted that on the Coyotes flights they had poker games, and there were a couple or three that ended up with hands that were $300,000 and $400,000.
Those are West Coast flights. Those are longer flights.
Yeah, exactly.
Jacks are better progressive. There you go.
No, but Kev, don't you think that the train is actually a better thing than the bus ride?
Yeah, I mean, I also think, because for sure. Yeah. But I think that there's a kind of a romance with tying it, at least for the first time they take a train trip, there'll be photos and everybody will get dressed up like it's the 1950s.
Right.
No, there's nothing better. I mean, if I have to go to New York City, that's just the only way to do it. I hop on Amtrak and I'm in New York City like that. There's nothing better than taking the train into New York City. I'll
give you an example. I can't picture Artemi Panarin on a charter bus.
One of my fond memories of when I first got the USA Today job in the 80s, I used to take the train into Washington, and then I take it to Philadelphia, and I always would get up early in the morning, and I guess feeling a need to jam up my arteries with that, I would stop at the bagel shop there that was in the 80s it was anyway, in Philadelphia Station, and it's the only place I've ever been to where before they put on cream cheese, they smother it in butter.
Yeah, butter.
Yeah, and then the cheese.
That was done in my household too, butter and cream cheese. I do.
It's not something that I would have ever done. But the first time I ever tried it, I thought, oh my gosh, that was like the greatest thing in the world to get the giant, everything bagel.
It's fat, but it's a different texture, so it's good.
Oh my gosh, yeah, it was just tremendous. And
cheese whiz on a bagel. There you go. I thought that's what you were talking about.
Oh no, I would have put cheese whiz on a bagel, but
no
cream cheese and butter. Yeah, I've probably never had it since then. But boy, I still remember how great it was on a tofu.
Russ, bagel. Is that the bagel shop that you got all the bagels before Live Aid?
No. We got those at a local Long Island place. I'll see you guys. I got to run.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we're out of time anyway, but I appreciate you, Kevin. Thank you. Have a wonderful holiday. Tell everybody.
You too. Merry Christmas to everyone.
Yeah, Merry Christmas to you as well, and have a great holiday. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow. I guess we're gonna be doing a show, Mike, tomorrow.
Yeah, me, Russ, and probably Anthony, and maybe Jan. We'll do a show tomorrow, and then
I won't be here. I'll be in my Christmas Eve mode. But remember, without the buzz, folks, have a great holiday. It is just hockey, but stay tuned. We got things happening.